Hello everybody, this is Megan France, creator of Pudgy Paul. I am making this video in tribute to a few elementary school students from a friend of mine who sent me emails asking about being an author. They were assigned the project in school to look up different career choices they'd be interested in, and a couple of them wanted to be authors. And so they sent me these wonderful letters via email that I unfortunately never received. They had a time set to create these projects, and the projects were due yesterday. So not only did I miss the email, but I also missed the event due to the fact that somehow the email landed in my spam folder. I feel horrible about this, so I decided to make this video in order to answer their questions and hopefully make up for the fact that I somehow missed the email. I hope that you enjoy this, and let's get to it. The first question I was asked was, what are the major responsibilities in your job? And while there are major responsibilities in publishing a book, and there are due dates that you need to have everything finished by in order for a book to be printed and published, I think that the first major responsibility in being an author is to tell a fun, engaging story to an audience that keeps them interested in your story from beginning, middle, and end. And that can take a lot of time and a lot of rewriting. You write down a story the first time and it might sound great in your head, but when you finally get it on paper, you might find out that there's certain things that don't add up the way you thought they would. And you have to rewrite and write again and then write again. I definitely wrote and rewrote my first story a lot of times in order to get it right. And you have to be able to do that to make sure that you're giving your audience the best you can. The second question they asked was, what education or skills does it take in order to be an author? And when it comes to education, I don't know if you need to have a PhD or a really, really big degree. I think basic understanding of spelling and grammar and how to write a sentence and to tell a story are very important. And I'm not always very good at those, so I definitely find people to help me make sure that my spelling and grammar are correct. But what skills you need, I think the most important skill is to understand imagination and to have imagination and tap into what it's like to be someone else than who you are. Because most of the time when you're telling a story or you're writing a book, you're talking about things that aren't necessarily from your point of view or just happened to you. Sometimes they might have just happened to you, but a lot of times you're writing about something that didn't necessarily happen to you. So you have to use a lot of imagination. And that is just cultivated, and you have to keep working on it to build up on that so that you can use more and more imagination for your stories. And I think that's the most important skill. The third question I was asked was, do I love my job? And I think for me, it's a little difficult to answer that question because while I am an author, and I'm very excited about that, and I love that part, I also have so many other things going on in my life, so I'm actually doing different jobs in order to be able to be an author. So I substitute teach sometimes, and I also am a costume designer, which means I design clothing for people for theater and plays. So I'm not always being an author, but when I am an author, when I put on that hat to be an author, I do love it. Sometimes it can be a little lonely because you're only doing writing by yourself a lot of the time, and I'm somebody who really likes to be around people. People make me happy, but and so that can sometimes be a little lonely, but only sometimes. Most of the time it's just a lot of fun trying to come up with a really cool story to tell people. The last question they asked me was, what am I learning? And that I could talk about for a very long time. So I'll try to keep it short. But I feel like I'm learning so much. There's so much that changes about telling a story. There's so much that changes and makes you grow as a person when you go through the hard work of writing a book. And what it takes to write a book and what it takes to get it published and what it takes to get it printed. And there's so many things that I never knew when starting this process, like how much it costs or how long it takes to write or how many times I'd have to rewrite my story or redraw my illustrations, which is also what I did. And I feel like every day I am learning so much about telling a story, or what people are interested in, or how to write a second book, or what it's gonna take to get my book printed and into libraries. So I'm learning so much all the time, but I think that's also a skill you learn as you go, that you're always learning. Even if you're not in school anymore, you're always learning. And that's important because the world is always changing, and so you need to be able to continually learn, otherwise you're gonna fall behind. So keep learning, because that's an important skill, and at least that's what I tell myself to make myself feel better every day when I'm constantly learning more things. I hope that answers your question. So those are the questions they asked me. I hope that my answers give insight into being an author and also encourage you to be an author one day. I'd love all of you to make the leap to actually finish a story, write it down on paper, and actually publish a book one day. I think that would be amazing. If you have any more questions for me, please feel free to become a fan of my Facebook page, Pudgy, P-U-D-G-Y, Paul, P-A-U-L, and then write to me through that. I'd love to hear from you and hear any more questions you might have. All right, bye.